Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Insights. I'm so happy you're here today. In this session, we're going to talk about a very important life skill, something that can truly change how we connect with others and how we feel inside. We're going to explore the power of silence, and specifically, the idea of being silent at the right time. When I was younger, I thought speaking was always important. I believed that to be smart, to be a good friend, or to be successful, I always had to have an answer, an opinion, or something to say. Silence felt empty. It felt like a problem in conversations. If there was a quiet moment, I felt like I needed to fill it with words. Any words. But as I grew older, I started to notice something. Sometimes, the most powerful moments weren't filled with words at all. Sometimes, a quiet moment, a deep breath, or simply listening without speaking was much stronger than any speech. It was a big realization for me. Silence isn't about not speaking. It's about knowing when not to speak. It's a skill, a powerful one. So, today, I want to share my personal journey with you. I want to talk about how I learned to value silence and how you can use this skill in your own life to build better relationships, make smarter decisions, and even find more peace. The first, silence to listen and understand others. Let's start with a very important part of silence, using it to listen and understand others. Many of us think we are good listeners, but there's a big difference between just hearing words and truly listening to what someone is saying. Hearing is something your ears do automatically. Listening, on the other hand, is an active choice. It's something your mind and heart do. When we are truly silent, we open ourselves up. We give space for another person to speak freely, without interruption. We show them that their words, their feelings, and their thoughts are important to us. I remember a time a few years ago. A close friend of mine was going through a very difficult period at work. They were feeling stressed and upset. They called me and started talking very quickly, explaining all the problems. My first thought was, "Oh, I need to give advice. I need to tell them what to do." But something stopped me. Maybe it was just tiredness, or maybe it was an instinct. Instead of jumping in with solutions, I just stayed quiet. I sat there, holding the phone, and just listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't say, "You should do this," or "Why don't you try that?" I just let them speak. I made small sounds of understanding, like, "Mm-hmm," or "I see," but mostly, I was silent. My friend talked for a long time, maybe 20 minutes. And when they finished, they sighed and said, "Thank you. Thank you for listening. I just needed someone to hear me." That moment taught me so much. My friend didn't need my advice at that moment. They needed to feel heard. They needed to feel understood. By being silent, I gave them that gift. And you know what? By the end of the conversation, they had actually started to come up with their own solutions just by talking through the problem aloud. When we practice silent listening, amazing things happen. We build stronger relationships because people feel trusted and respected. We learn more about different perspectives and feelings. We avoid misunderstandings because we take the time to truly grasp what the other person is saying before we form our own reply. It's a powerful way to show care without saying a single word. So, try it. Next time someone is talking, just focus on them. Don't think about what you'll say next. Just listen. The second, silence to think before speaking. Now, let's talk about another very important use of silence, using it to think before you speak. We all know the saying, think before you speak. But how often do we actually do it, especially when we're emotional or excited? I can tell you, I've had many moments where I almost said something I deeply regretted. Maybe it was in an argument with a family member or a heated discussion with a colleague at work. My emotions would get high, and words would just bubble up, ready to spill out of my mouth. One time, I was in a disagreement with a friend about a plan we had made. I felt like they were being unfair, and I was ready to say some very strong words. Words that would probably hurt their feelings and damage our friendship. As I opened my mouth, a tiny voice inside me, almost a whisper, said, "Wait! Just wait a second." And I did. I closed my mouth. I took a quick, deep breath. It was only a second or two, but in that moment of silence, my mind started to work. I thought about what I was about to say. I imagined how my friend would feel, and I realized that my immediate reaction would make the situation much worse, not better. Because of that tiny pause, that moment of silence, I was able to choose different words. I was able to express my feelings calmly and clearly, without anger. The conversation was still difficult, but it ended respectfully, and our friendship was saved. That's the magic of the pause. This pause, this moment of silence, gives our brain time to catch up with our emotions. It helps us organize our thoughts, choose the right words, and control our tone. It prevents us from saying things we don't truly mean or things that could cause pain. It's like putting a filter on our words, making sure only the good ones get out. By thinking before we speak, we become clearer communicators. We avoid conflicts, and we build a reputation as someone who speaks thoughtfully and wisely. The third, silence to learn and observe. Let's explore another amazing way silence helps us by giving us space to learn and observe. Sometimes, the best way to understand the world around us isn't by asking questions or giving opinions, but by simply being quiet and paying attention. When I was in school, I often felt like I needed to be the first one to answer or to show I knew something. If the teacher asked a question, I would quickly raise my hand, even if I wasn't completely sure of the answer. I thought that speaking up made me look smart. But I slowly started to realize that sometimes, by speaking too quickly, I missed important details. I missed what others were saying, or what the teacher was really trying to explain. I remember a time when I was learning a new skill. It was something practical, like fixing a small engine. My first instinct was to jump in and try things, maybe even break something. But my teacher, a very patient person, told me, "Just watch for a bit. Don't touch anything yet. Just observe." So I stood back. I stayed silent and just watched him work. I saw how he used his tools, how he checked different parts, and how he solved small problems. Because I was silent, I wasn't busy talking or thinking about my own ideas. My mind was open to taking in everything. I noticed small movements, the sound of the engine, and even the way he held his hands. I learned more in those silent moments of observation than I would have by trying and failing many times myself. It was like I was a sponge, soaking up information without making a sound. When we are silent, our senses become sharper. We see more, we hear more, and we feel more. This is true whether we are learning a new skill, trying to understand a new culture, or even just observing nature. Silence allows us to be fully present and to truly absorb what's happening around us. It helps us see the bigger picture and notice the small, important details that words might hide. So, try giving yourself the gift of silent observation. You might be surprised by how much you learn. The fourth, silence for inner peace and reflection now. Let's talk about a type of silence that is deeply personal. Silence for inner peace and reflection. In our busy world, it often feels like there's noise everywhere. From our phones, from traffic, from other people talking. It can be hard to find a quiet moment just for ourselves. But finding these moments of silence is so important for our minds and our hearts. For a long time, I was afraid of silence when I was alone. If there was no music or no TV, I would feel a bit strange, maybe even bored. I thought I always needed something to entertain me, something to fill the quiet. But I started to notice that after a very busy day, when my mind was full of thoughts and worries, I felt tired and stressed. One evening, I decided to try something new. Instead of turning on the TV or checking my phone, I just sat quietly in my room. It felt a little strange at first, but after a few minutes, something changed. I started to notice my breath, the quiet sounds outside, and the thoughts in my head. I didn't try to stop the thoughts. I just let them be there. It was like watching clouds pass by in the sky. In that quiet time, I started to feel more calm. My mind, which had been racing all day, began to slow down. I was able to think about my day, about what went well, and what I could do differently tomorrow. It wasn't about finding answers right away, but just about allowing myself to be with my thoughts without judgment. This kind of silence is like giving our brain a rest. It helps us process our feelings, understand ourselves better, and find a sense of calm. When we regularly take moments for silent reflection, even just 5 or 10 minutes, we can reduce stress, make clearer decisions, and feel more balanced. It's a powerful way to connect with our inner self and find a deeper sense of peace in our lives. The fifth, silence to defend yourself from attacks or criticism. Now, let's look at another surprising way silence can help us, by allowing us to protect ourselves from small attacks or unfair criticism. When someone says something rude, unkind, or simply not true, our first instinct is often to react, to speak quickly, to fight back with words. But sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. I used to react very quickly to negative comments. If someone criticized my work or said something mean, I felt I had to defend myself right away. My mind would race, trying to find the perfect words to prove them wrong. I believed that if I stayed silent, it meant I was weak, or worse, that I agreed with them. I remember one time when I was working on a group project. We were sharing ideas, and one person made a very dismissive comment about my suggestion. They said, "That's a silly idea. It won't work." I felt a wave of anger. My heart beat faster, and my mouth was ready to reply. But then I paused. I didn't say anything. I just looked at the person, calmly and quietly. It was only a few seconds of silence, but something changed. I realized that reacting in anger would only make things worse. It would turn a small comment into a big fight. So I stayed silent. I didn't argue. I didn't show my anger. I just waited. And something interesting happened. Because I didn't react, their comment lost its power. The conversation continued, and others began to talk about my idea again. This time, more seriously. I didn't have to fight to be heard. My silence said everything. When someone says something rude or stupid, it's easy to feel like we must respond. But often, silence is stronger than any words. It shows that you are in control of your emotions, your reactions, and your focus. It shows that their words don't hurt you or shake your confidence. By staying silent, you take away their power. You don't give them the argument they want. Silence in these moments doesn't mean you don't care. It means you are wise enough to know that not every comment deserves a response. Sometimes, the best way to win is to not play the game. This kind of silence is powerful. It protects your peace, saves your energy, and shows real strength, the quiet kind. The final, silence to regain control in difficult moments. Finally, I want to share how silence can help us regain control in difficult moments. Life isn't always easy, and sometimes we face situations that make us feel angry, frustrated, or overwhelmed. In these moments, our first reaction might be to shout, complain, or act without thinking. But I've learned that silence can be our greatest ally when things get tough. I remember a time when I was facing a lot of pressure at work. Deadlines were tight, and everything felt urgent. One day, a project went wrong. And it wasn't my fault, but I felt like everyone was looking at me. My heart was beating fast, and I felt a wave of anger and frustration. My immediate urge was to complain loudly or blame someone else. But in that heated moment, I remembered the power of silence. Instead of reacting instantly, I took a step back, both physically and mentally. I didn't say a word. I just breathed deeply for a few seconds. It felt like a very long time, but it was probably only 10 or 15 seconds. In that brief period of silence, I felt my intense emotions begin to cool down. Because I chose silence, I avoided saying something I would later regret. I gave myself time to think clearly about the situation instead of letting my emotions take over. After that short pause, I was able to calmly explain what happened, find a solution, and move forward. If I had reacted with anger, the situation would have become much worse. This skill is incredibly valuable. When we are silent in difficult situations, it doesn't mean we are weak or that we are giving up. It means we are strong enough to control our reactions. It allows us to observe the situation without bias, to choose our response wisely, and to stay calm under pressure. Silence can be a shield that protects us from our own impulsive reactions, helping us to act with wisdom and dignity even when everything around us feels chaotic.